that idea of what Andrew Lloyd Webber did with the Phantom of the Opera. And I've seen it. I've seen it in Niagara Falls and I've seen it on Broadway, both being very, very young. But that was the first time music that was out of my taste touched me. And I was just blown away by that.
Welcome to the My Future Business Show, where we get you in front of your best audience and keep you there. Not only are we interviewing the biggest names in business to help you become even more successful, we're inviting you to book your spot on the show to help you grow your business. So at the end of the call, make sure you fill in the interview application form at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews. Hi and welcome back to the My Future Business Show. My name is Rick Nusky. I am the host, and I would just love to stop and say thank you so very much for joining us and for all of the feedback that we continue to get about the show. Now, my next guest is very special. Now, I'd just like to start by saying that, we talk about business on the show purely from oftentimes, might I say, from a purely nuts and bolts about how to run a business. But oftentimes we miss the other side of the story about the journey, and I guess some of the conflicts that people go through as they, weave their craft, as it were. Now, today I'm on the line with Ziggy Shaffer, otherwise known as Zigzag. Welcome to the show.
Boy, the ZIG, the ZAG. How are you, Rick?
Yeah, I'm very well. Thank you, my friend. Thank you for joining us. Now, like I was just talking about, Ziggy, if you don't mind me calling you that.
Not at all.
What we were going to be talking about today is primarily your journey as an entrepreneur, but the conflicting, I guess, morals and value sets that you have as an artist. And we're going to be talking about your self-built label, Wrapped and Tightly Twisted Productions, because I want to help you become the best version of yourself and get your message and your brand out and about. So with all that being said, thanks again for joining me.
No problem, buddy. No problem. I can't say enough how much I appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I think a really good place to start, Ziggy, is I've been looking at some of the write-ups that you've had on New York Weekly Times. Pretty prolific on there. It's come up trumps for you there. You've got a lot of sources of inspiration. I'd love to talk about that. But first and foremost, let's talk about you. Let's talk about where you're located and what you're currently doing with yourself in these tough times with COVID going on.
I'm located out of Pittsburgh, PA, USA. The Steel City.
Fantastic.
At this point in time, with everything going on, I'm strictly on the music. I eat it, sleep it, breathe it.
Yep.
I'm very passionate about it. So it's a good thing, during these tough times, there are a lot of good things that could come from this, I feel.
And that's a wonderful thing, because I want to talk about sources of inspiration for you, because I bet you're thinking a lot about, new content, new tracks to chuck down, new lyrics for those tracks, and, how the world, I guess, shapes a lot of what you do. Could you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah. One of the things I would go to is my release just recently, Toxic. It was also in the New York Times. And one of the things about that was that whole song was a conflict because of my Halloween release, Don't Forget Me, where I was trying to make people feel things, and in doing that I wasn't paying attention enough to the people around me.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I get inspired by things, and as being seen as an entrepreneur, like, people don't see the vision.
Yeah.
But that's where a lot of it comes from, is just my own personal life, which most artists do, but there's always something that inspires me.
Now, talking about your life a little bit more, I want to go way back. We're talking way back, teenage years, early years. I'd like to know, what did your life look like, and what were some of the things that made you go down this path? What made you realize that you wanted to be an artist and entrepreneur? And which one comes first for you?
Definitely an artist.
Yep.
Definitely an artist. As far as the entrepreneur, when I did the onboarding in the process, That was about the only box I fit into. And then to go back and see the definition of an entrepreneur just being a person or persons that organize and operates a business and takes on the greater the normal financial risk, and an
Mm-hmm.
entity that acts upon the opportunities and so forth. And then it's just straight says a promoter in the entertainment industry, and I'm like, okay, now I feel like an entrepreneur when I read it that way. As far as my past, obviously most artists like myself, it was a very rough and rocky start. A lot of family issues growing up. I was emancipated when I was 16, so that was kind of like being thrown into the real world, and just being through everything, and then getting to where I'm getting right now in this moment, to be able to look back and be like, you know what, that doesn't hurt me as bad anymore. I can come out publicly with that, and not feel like, oh, I still feel that way. The one of the Halloween release was actually written 14 years ago. There was some issues. I was dealing with some drug issues, and I was very down and depressed, and it was winter, and I felt some sort of way. And then to see that song sit for 14 years, and then have Samantha Lee, an awesome fellow content creator, come out and be like, yeah, I'm willing to do the hook for you, and being like, this is a very dark song. I just want you to. And she said, no, that's okay. And to see it bloom after all that time was just, it was amazing.
Congratulations on that. I look at you and I think when you start talking about your craft, you light up. I don't need to say anything. I
I
can sit here in silence, and this is what this is all about: is to bring out your spark. But again, the focus. I want to talk a little bit more about the artists in your earlier days that gave you inspiration. Who were you listening to, and who do you still listen to get sparks of inspiration?
well, I mean, that one, it started writing the Rose That Grew from Concrete,
Yes.
with Tupac Shakur's poem book. And as a kid, learning and writing poems, or getting into poetry, and then being angry. So you write a poem and it's not so nice. And then as I growing up, then I got into, well, there's a whole world full of poetry, angry poetry,
Mm-hmm.
and it just kind of branched off from there. Obviously, as the paper stated, one of my inspirations for music, just in general, was the Phantom of the Opera. I've got the Phantom of the Opera set, and that's weird. Oh, that might be viewed as weird as coming from an artist, who makes the music that I make, but that idea of what Andrew Lloyd Webber did with the Phantom of the Opera, and I've seen it. I've seen it in Niagara Falls, and I've seen it on Broadway. Both being very, very young, but that was the first time music that was out of my taste touched me, and I was just blown away by that.
Yeah, that's fantastic feedback. Thank you. And this is what I like to hear is because you're not just cut from one angle. You've got many dimensions that make up yourself as a person, as an artist. And I'd like to touch on Tupac Shakur if I could, in terms of he actually he tapped into the movie industry, obviously, very famously
Yes.
so. Now, I also understand that as part of Wrapped and Tightly Twisted Productions, you're not only just music, but your video creation. Could we talk a little bit about that as well?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That is something that, looking back in the past, and writing my songs and my poetry and all this, I never really got to the fact of it was going to be me being the one to create it. As most people, when they're young, they want to get signed to a deal, and there's going to be a $1 million team that's going to shoot the videos, and they're going to do the editing. And, the dream is so far ahead that when it came down to it, getting on YouTube, and being in the pandemic, and just watching people sit on YouTube and just eat Cheetos, and some of the things where it was just, there was no effort to it, and I got that flair in me to be like, I think I could do that better. And then to see a lot of artists and that are doing their own editing and so forth, to be like, this can be done. Like, this
Yeah.
can be done. A lot of it's just trial and error. I figure out so many things 3-4 months after, the editing gets done and the shooting gets done, that it's like, oh man, if I'd have known that then, like, I could have done something a little bit differently. But in the next one, I'm willing to take the loss to learn the lesson.
Yeah, absolutely. That's sage advice. Thank you very much for sharing. Now, I wonder, I always talk about the human side of, we've touched on entrepreneurialism, owning businesses and being successful, and knowing that this is a long journey. This is never meant to be about making money, which is quite different than a lot of people get into this for. Has it helped you heal? You've talked about the troubled times that you've experienced, and has it helped you heal creating this content?
It has, and I feel the way that it's helped me heal is the fact of, there are a lot of people I feel that walk around with feelings or things to say, or an opinion that they want to get shown or something, but they spend a lot of time just holding on to it. And I feel like when I release a video and I know that my kids and my wife and my best friends and all 537 people that are subscribed, and my knowing that all these people, that gives me the confidence that I'm okay with myself enough to say this. Now, there are people that are going to be like, oh, I don't really agree with that, or, I don't know, you should have said that. And it's like, yeah, but I'm okay with me. And that's where I feel it's healed me, because having that confidence to be able to be like, no, this is how I feel. Like when I wrote the one song, don't forget me. Like, I felt like shooting myself, and that's, to come out publicly and be like, I did feel that way. I don't anymore, but I did, and I'm okay with that. Really lets me walk into rooms that I wouldn't normally be able to walk into, because of that confidence of healing from my music.
You talk about a particular Minnesota rapper, Sean Daly, known as Slug, from
Yes.
Atmosphere. Now, you cite him as a main source of inspiration for your style. Can you
Yes.
talk to that and tell us why that is?
He's been around for a long, long time, and his music was out, or was out underground before Eminem became blown
Eminem.
up. Right. And so he's been in that, and he's a local. The people in Minnesota, anybody in Minnesota knows him. Like, he's the hometown hero of underground music for them. But just the way his stories, he's a storyteller. And some of the ways that, now that I'm editing and shooting videos, and I look back and look at the videos that I used to watch all the time, and realize that there's no $1 million team behind him. Some of those videos are so raw, that just sitting in the car and being very frustrated and being like, I could shoot that. Like,
Hmm.
and to see that, and to be like, okay, he almost like let the bar set at a point where it was like, you can do this.
So when you produce content, Ziggy, what's
Yes.
the time frame? Is there a set time frame? Do you get on a roll? Do you have a run of creativity, if you like, and then you stop? How does the process go for you?
And that's something that, as being as fresh into this that I am, that I'm learning. There's a lot of learning in this long journey. But my basically how this what it started is, we released the first video February 14th, of this year, and I've went straight through as much as I can. And at first it was just, like I said, a lot of figuring things out and being like, oh, this isn't going to work. But as you keep throwing yourself against the same wall, you realize that things pick up and go faster. And what was taking me a month to 2 months to put together, I've gotten into the fact of, if I'm that driven and I have the Halloween release, pulled an old song, made the video, got everything set, got everything put into place, and it was almost like it just clicked. And I say, I really feel for anybody that's listening on your great show that it's just keep throwing yourself at the wall because eventually it clicks.
And that's the thing that we've want to hear is this inspirational feedback, and because there are a lot of people out there that are struggling, especially right now, Ziggy, with everything that's going on in the world. It's one of those things that you've got to keep at it, like you say, throw it to the wall. Something's going to stick eventually. Now, um, I want to talk a little bit more about the video creation. I noticed that in some of the videos, I've watched a handful of them, is that you do have obviously other players involved. Do you have any help to do this footage, create this video footage?
I the yeah, the being a homegrown operation, we I use me and my wife run it, and they're friends and family that when the timing can work or my vision can be seen and they're comfortable with it, that they'll help. But as far as that, everything else is just I'm a sole writer, recorder, editor. It's my wife is really helpful as far as giving ideas on the videos, and being very supportive of being like, hey, I'm gonna go and do something really stupid. I need you to hold the camera. And she's like, I don't know, Ziggy, like I really don't really want to, like yeah, I know, but I need you to kind of go with this for me. And she's really she's my number one writer. I like I said, I do have a handful of friends that when the opportunity arises and trying to get, I don't know how like a band would do it, because having one person is one thing, but having 5 or 6 people, or you see some of these big movie shoots and stuff where there's so many people, directors I give a lot of props to. But I've got people, I've got a very close core that I will use. Um, and they're the same people, toe tags in, body bags out. Like we started this and we're going to push through it.
Yeah, fantastic. It's nice to know that you've got core groups of support there. Now, you've obviously had enough of a vision to create a production group, both video and obviously content, lyrics, and things like that. What is the big plan here? What do you want this to become?
Um, I want it to be a real respectable label.
Mm.
I'd like to build a label, which is like the number one thing you don't do is have the main artist build the label. At this point in time, I'm the artist and the label. So
Yep.
that's, but I just to keep making good music, just to not be forgotten.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Lewis Hamilton, F1 driver, obviously of world fame, 6 or 7 time world champion, said, "You know what? Don't let anyone ever tell you you can't do it." So, one thing I would say to anybody who's on the show today: make sure that you think about those things where you're up against the wall and things are not going great for you. Because I know that Ziggy, based on our conversation, you've been through a lot. But you've obviously got some core friends and family that are supporting you. You've got the vision there. And I'd like to know, are you working on content right now? And what's the current day inspiration that you're writing about? Are you willing to share that?
Um, I always have content. The right now, my wife has it set that after this interview, all music and productions will come to a halt because it is the holiday season.
Beautiful.
So I am grounded from music until the new year. Um, and right now we're working with distributions and trying to figure out actually getting an album out, and if it's going to be if it's going to be financially worth that
Yeah.
to pay for a distribution and to make sure everything's copywritten and to get everything set and then to only sell a couple CDs. um, when I'm on YouTube and SoundCloud and all these other things where I'm just giving it away. I'm just giving my music away because I want people to hear it, and I wanted people to be inspired to be like, well, I mean, if the guy can start off getting drunk and recording in his basement and then actually build that, like I can do that.
YouTube is an absolutely a behemoth when it comes to the seeds, and then they grow into massive artists. We've seen it time and time and again, and it's the place to be right now. Do you, if I might, and we can go back to that if you like. Do you have, we talked about at the very start of the call, I talked about how we often talk about just the mechanics of a business. Now, unfortunately, regardless, if this is going to become something you want to sell things and you want to actually have some sort of a, quote unquote business behind it, you're going to need processes. What are your plans there? Do you think that this is going to become a more formal structure if you start to get market penetration and you start to get people noticing you? Or are you just always going to be that artist who goes, you know what, I don't want that structure, I feel trapped by it?
I'm not really sure,
Mm-hmm.
to be honest. And that sounds bad as being somebody as confident as I am, but I know that the future can go many different ways very quickly. So we want to do it ourselves, but there have been communications with distributions and some labels that are like, well, you're not there, but we can still see that, and it's like, well, am I really gonna pour my soul, my blood into making a production to sell it out on?
Mm.
And that's where I'm not there. And I think a lot of artists, they're just one way or the other. Either they're fully independent or they're looking for the contract. And it's like there's a real learn and a gap there of learning who you really are and what you're standing for with what you're doing.
I love this because you're the salt of the earth. You're down to earth, and you're honest about this. And I think that's going to put you in good step to move forward. Now, you've talked about some pretty massive names here. From the vocal artist, Snoop Dogg is obviously well across video as well. But when it comes to your videos, you've taken your inspiration, like you mentioned briefly, Sir Alfred Hitchcock, and he has some very dark ways of communicating messages. Why did you choose him?
Well, being wrapped and tightly twisted, it kind of fits on the dark
Genre?
idea. Yeah, yeah. And honestly, there's been times where I'm trying to shoot a scene or a video, and either I can't make it work for what I'm trying to do, or I feel like it's going to be too graphic and it could be pulled off. So I found if you go back in time and learn from the past, that he's the guy that his cuts and the way he cut the shots and the way that you never really seen the lady getting stabbed in Psycho, but you've seen everything out. It showed you what you were trying to see without actually it being there. And it's like a magician to me. The way he does some of his stuff is just like the way he cuts it or gets the angle of just the blood running, down the tub, is just enough to be like, that creates that. I feel when people visualize that, they start creating their own visual of the visual I've created or tried to create.
Yeah, I understand that completely because it leaves that spot for the imagination to run wild. I
Right.
I wonder, Ziggy, moving into the sharp end of the call, and it's just been fantastic. Thank you so much for opening up and sharing with us, because I'm sure a lot of people on the call today are going to take a lot of value away from your experience and your journey thus far. You've got a long way to go, and I'm sure it's going to be wonderful. Can we talk just briefly about your new album that I believe is coming out in February?
Yes.
Tell us a
Yes.
little bit about that.
The Wrapped and Tightly Twisted album is being released 1 year after I decided, you know what, I'm going to do this for a year and see if I can really make it happen. It seemed fitting. Basically, the plan was, or has been the whole time, was to put the content out on YouTube, on SoundCloud, pictures on Instagram, to do all the platforms, and learn what it was going to really take to put the album together. What songs, were going to do really well and weren't going to do really well. And me and the wife have actually talked about just revamping a lot of the songs, because now we know what we didn't know then. What if we remade the songs our own way, for the album? And that goes with the distribution and so forth of learning. I'm still learning what to and not to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Now we are always learning. There's always something new to consider. There's always new sources of inspiration for everybody who's on the call today. If you haven't taken anything from this call, I don't think you've been listening. There's just so much that's been shared on the call today, and I want to thank you again, Ziggy. Now, right now, I know that you are going to just about to take a break, but if anybody wants to see any of your content thus far, where's the best place for them to touch base?
Would be YouTube Wrapped and Tightly Twisted Productions.
Fantastic. Well, there you go. Everybody's on the show today. I will be making sure to put the YouTube link back to Zigzag's YouTube channel. And with that all being said, thank you so very much for joining me on the My Future Business show today.
Thank you again, Rick. You have a great night.
Thanks for joining us today. If you enjoyed the call, then make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, share us with your friends, and book your spot on the show at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews. And if you're looking for solutions that will help grow your business, then visit myfuturebusiness.com/shop.